Greetings. Welcome to Poor Walter's Almanac. I'm Walter Jacobson. It is my pleasure to introduce a guest, someone who I really admire and respect, and he's probably most famous for Alice's Restaurant, Mr. Arlo Guthrie. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
What do you, we got a lot of problems in the country, it seems. We got problems with the educational system, as we touched upon.
Yes.
And of course the environment is devastated, and is there a way out? Is there something that individuals can do that can speed up the process of recovery?
Well, you know, it's interesting because there are a lot of people working on this and have been working on it for years. People like my friend Pete Seeger and a lot of other people have wondered, how do we really attack this whole problem? And what Pete did was very interesting. He built a replica of an old Hudson River sloop. Pete lives along the Hudson. And everybody said, what are you doing? What does this got to do with the environment, you know? And but they built this boat, and they sail it up and down the river. Everybody says, well, that beautiful boat. People came down to the river to see it. School kids wanted to learn about boats. And while they went down the river, they noticed, hey, all those bottles and cans, there's trash around here, there's stuff coming out of people's toilets, floating down, you know, and they said, boy, this is really terrible. So pretty soon, Pete said, well, you know, why don't we clean it up around where the boat is, and we'll get people to say, well, let's stop that plant there from, you know, dumping stuff in the river. And now it's 20 years since Pete started this idea. They're swimming in the Hudson where years ago you couldn't swim at all. There's fish coming back that haven't been seen in there in over 4 or 5 decades. And I really learned a lot by just watching this guy struggle with it. Wasn't an idea that came all at once, but little by little he learned that to get people interested, it has to be interesting. A lot of times the environmental dooms and gloom type people that say, oh, we're all going to die, the planet's going to heat up, monsters are going to, you know, attack us. It's interesting to a point, but after a while it's, so what? What are we going to do? But you got to do something close to you, in your own backyard. And when people begin to feel responsible for their own selves, and we're doing it, by the way, I think there's some real progress that can be made.
Oh, that's great. That's a great story. What do you think, now that we're a year away from the Iraq War, the Persian Gulf War, what are your perspectives on it?
I am so mixed up about that. I mean, you know, I would love to have an answer for everything. I don't. I got a lot of mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I really think that what we did over there had to do with oil. If it had to do with democracy, there'd be a democracy in Kuwait. There isn't. If it had to do with democracy, there might be a democracy in Iraq. There isn't. I'm a little annoyed that the people we bumped off, the Iraqi soldiers that we were bumping off over there, were probably our allies, in the sense that they probably didn't want to be there any more than we wanted them there. So we were bumping off people who were sympathetic to us, while the enemies, if you want to call them that, were hiding out in the hills, hanging around Saddam Hussein. They're still there. So we lost a couple 100,000 potential friends, and I don't know in the long run how smart that was.
Right. It saddens me that that George Bush's popularity just skyrocketed amidst the same problems that we have now.
Well, you have to understand. You have to differentiate. It was a tremendous battlefield type victory. No question about it. I mean, for the books, this is like Thermopylae or something like that. I mean, this is going to go down, and you know, this is big time. It proved that a lot of the high-tech stuff that some of us, including me, have been bitching about for years really does work. And I had to shut my mouth about some of that stuff. And that's okay. I don't mind being proved wrong. I don't know how valuable that is in the long run, or how politically right it is to go out and beat somebody up who's a lot weaker than you are. I don't think it shows a whole lot. But I think it gave us... I think that's what people were rejoicing about. Not that we kicked somebody's butt, but that we kicked them so swiftly, and so almost, you know, beautifully in a certain way.
Yeah, it was great entertainment.
It was.
Yeah.
And it shows that our commanders and people like that know what they're doing out there. I mean, those generals are not a bunch of idiots. Now, if we could get that same kind of motivation to stop hunger around the world, you know, if there are 40,000 kids that didn't have to die every day out of starvation, and we use that same kind of technology and that same kind of instant movement of supplies and troops and people like that, we could do some fabulous things in this world. So on one hand, I was very happy to see that America can do something. What we did is another matter. It might have been kind of stupid, but we can do something. We can stop hunger. We can stop a whole lot of things. We can do things about the environment. We have the people with the know-how who are willing to go and go into dangerous situations. And those are the threats to this country. Saddam Hussein was never going to invade New Jersey. You know, I wouldn't even invade New Jersey. So that's not a big-time threat. But the trade imbalances, the recessions or depressions or whatever you want to call them around the world, the instability of these new arising nations in Eastern Europe. We still got to deal with China. I don't think we're real smart on that. There's a lot of trouble around the world. And I think we have to start resolving them with the same kind of drive and the same kind of conviction and the same kind of technology and the same kind of brilliance that we displayed in the Gulf.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that's really happening. It seems like the defense cuts that are happening are almost token, and that the money and the personnel really aren't being converted to these kind of peacetime global things that you're talking about.
Well, that's more a matter of leadership. What I'm talking about is ability.
Right.
Now we know we can. Before it was a question. But we saw so beautifully and so graphically that we can do anything we want.
Okay.
We could feed everybody and nobody could stop us anymore.
Okay, then let's talk about leadership now. George Bush, what's your feelings about him is he a good president?
I've learned a lot in the last 20 years, and maybe the most important thing is don't judge anybody. So I'm not going to judge George Bush, especially in front of a lot of people. I think there's a lot of problems that he hasn't addressed in the same way that I would. That's for sure. And I don't know if I'd buy a used car from him, but those are personal gut feelings. I don't have the same problem with Dan Quayle that a lot of people have. I like Dan. I think anybody that grows up foolish in front of so many people can't be all bad if he's still hanging in there. I mean, to take that kind of abuse and still be smiling, there's a real man in there. Okay. So I'm not too worried.